How's it going, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome back to another episode of Cosplay Con Talk, where we basically discuss everything pertaining to the cosplay community and conventions. I'm once again here joined by Kurt Litke, who you may remember when we covered KCC Comic Con 2022 for a convention discussion. This time around, we are going to be doing a quick little recap and also talk about what you'll expect to see this year at KCC Comic Con. Again, Kurt, thank you for coming back on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Any opportunity to spread the word about our event is very welcomed.
So, last year was the first time for KCC Comic Con, and from what I saw posted and everything, you had over 2,000 attendees.
It was a happy accident. Um, the school, I work for Klamath Community College in Klamath Falls. I'm the photographer, videographer, work at marketing and public information officer. And how this all came about was on a completely unrelated tone. I was having a conversation with our school president, and this must have been February or March of 2022. And he wasn't necessarily giving me marching orders in any way. He was just sort of opining to the walls about, Kurt, one of our big problems here is that, we've been putting on all this work to improve our facilities. We've got this beautiful campus. We sit right at the intersection of two major highways, so people know exactly where we're at. But unless they're a student or an employee, no one ever actually stops and sets foot on campus. How do we change that? And having spent a lot of time with conventions and expos and my career path over the many years before I ended up in Klamath Falls, it took about half a second for my brain to click and say, we should do a Comic-Con on campus and host that and incentivize people walking around campus and seeing our facilities through a stamp system that would then incentivize them to collect a free prize if they visit every station. That way we have people visiting different places around campus. And the response I got was, what's a Comic-Con? And so I said, okay, give me a couple of months, a budget, and some trust, and I can guarantee you a large crowd on campus. And thankfully, our president allows people to do things that they're passionate about and have a vision for. He said, go do it. So I put together a committee, and about 3 months later, we held the first ever KCC Comic Con on Friday, May 13th. So we did it kind of horror themed unofficially, but it was also Sonic the Hedgehog themed because I hit up a lot of, so I worked in Hollywood for about 12 years before I moved up here. So I have a lot of friends in film, TV, video games, and music. And so I just hit up a bunch of buddies for people I'd worked with or people that I knew from my time there and said, can you join us via Zoom, or can you come up to Klamath for the day we're doing a Comic-Con? And they're like, oh, hell yeah, I'd totally be a part of it if you're doing it. So our featured speakers last year were my buddies Pat and Josh, who have I worked with Pat at Insomniac Games. Those who are familiar with Ratchet and Clank and the Resistance games on PlayStation, and more recently the Spider-Man games. Pat and I worked on all of the Ratchet and Clank games together. And struggling actor in Hollywood who, fast forward almost 20 years later, and Pat and Josh are the screenwriters for the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. And so last year, a lot of people showed up in Sonic costumes because they wanted to talk to the people who were writing the Sonic movies and trying to get some Sonic 3 info out of them. But there's these things called NDAs where they couldn't really talk much
Oh
about
yeah,
that.
no, you once you sign that, you cannot say anything. You don't want to end up like that guy who leaked early footage of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
Yeah, I had to keep reminding the crowd that not even wives and girlfriends know what Pat and Josh are working on for Sonic 3, so stop asking. But we had I think our timing was really good. First of all, we made the event entirely free last year. And that was intentional because ultimately the goal of it is to get people on our campus and to explore this amazing space in Klamath Falls that people may drive by but never actually stop at. Um, we had people come from as far away as Sacramento, Salem, a lot of people from Medford area, Eugene, Portland, just for a Friday afternoon on our campus because it was a Comic-Con that was free. So it was open to anyone and everyone. And also we timed it right where we were just getting out of those COVID restrictions.
And it
And
was also in
so
spring too, as well.
yeah. And so for folks who are really into this culture, It'd been a couple of years. I'm sure people were really jonesing for that experience again. And so when Columbus said, "Hey, we're doing a free one, open to everyone. We'll have tons of giveaways. Come on down, check out what we got going on." I think it intrigued a lot of people. We heard from a lot of people, both locally and from afar, that said, I've never set foot on your campus before. I didn't realize you had all this cool stuff. So in that respect, mission accomplished. I can say in fall of, the current school year, enrollment at KCC was up 17%. The next highest among the 17 community colleges across the state of Oregon was 3%. So I can't say that solely Comic-Con was the reason, but I think it may have been a factor in that we had so many people set foot on campus and realize, oh, I didn't know that I could learn how to fly an airplane here, or drive a truck, or be a carpenter, or they have all these other cool programs that are going on here. I had no idea this was in my community. Maybe I'll enroll in the fall. So in that respect, the con accomplished a huge goal. We were a little overwhelmed with crowd.
Oh
I
yeah.
did it on a Friday and not a weekend because I was worried about the number of volunteers that I would have for the first year ever doing it, thinking, well, I could tap into more of the staff if it's on a Friday. And I vividly recall we set up a registration table where we normally do for our community events. And as a community college, we do tons of different community events, resource fairs and career fairs, and
It's a great way to add, it's a great way to advertise and get people to check out the campus and everything.
exactly. We're constantly doing public events, and maybe we'll draw a couple hundred. And I remember once a month we have all employee meetings, and so I was given an opportunity to talk to people about what the ongoing plans were for Comic-Con. And every time I said, expect maybe a couple thousand people on campus, I get a lot of, uh-huh,
Oh,
sure,
you had
yeah.
you had the doubters.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of skeptics. And then within the first half hour of the event, the line to register at our booth was out the door, down the sidewalk, into the parking lot, and around the block. And our vendor floor was like sardines. And I remember seeing the couple of vice presidents, administrators, and our school president walk by, and they have just eyes like
I
saucers, like,
bet you had like the biggest smirk.
oh, they were basically mouthing, "What the F is going on here?"
I
And
mean,
I saw the president kind of saw me up on stage. I was doing an intro for our first speaker, and he just kind of gave me a big thumbs up and went, "We're doing this again."
see,
And
it's like he already saw like, wait, this actually this is the thing people like. Okay, and I think people need to realize that conventions, and I was thinking about this earlier that um like conventions people like and like it also depends on who you bring as a guest. You're gonna get a lot of people. Like you have the writers from Sonic the Hedgehog there, so that brought in a good chunk of people. Not to mention it's a Comic Con, and Oregon doesn't really have a whole lot of cons.
right. And I know Medford. I'm very glad to hear that Medford is bringing back their Comic
Yep,
Con
yep,
after
May 4th, 2024.
that. That's wonderful to hear. I had volunteered at the Comic Con in Medford a couple of times. How I also kind of got involved in this was that, like I said, I worked in Hollywood for many years. I worked mostly in music, but also in film, social media, and video games. And I can confidently say I probably have the largest private collection
I remember you
of
telling me
video
that
game consoles in Southern
last
Oregon, if
time.
not all of the state. I own about 90 video game consoles going back to 1972.
I
In
cannot
fact,
wait. I hope you can bring those next year for Medford Comic Con.
so transporting everything is always a little bit of an issue.
Oh, I believe it.
But the consoles not so much, but the TVs for all of the consoles. I actually have a tool shed on my property that is nothing but old CRT televisions
It's like
for
it's
when I
like
do
walking
public events.
it's like walking into it's like walking into a circuit city basically.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of TVs that I have been donated to me that I've salvaged from dumps and thrift stores and just over the years collected a wide variety. And I don't always bring out the full collection. I'm happy to bring it out. I treat my collection like an interactive museum. It's a museum that people can see, touch, feel, and whenever possible, I try to set up chronologically. So you walk into a space in 1972 and you can work your way around the room year by year to present day. So
Ooh.
I've done that in Medford. I've done that a number of times here in Klamath. I've done that at different events up and down the West Coast. And I love sharing that experience. I love when I get a little kid that's dragging around a parent or grandparent at an event that is just kind of going through the motions till they come to my area and all of a sudden their eyes get real big and go, oh, I had that when I was your age. And we'll immediately want to sit down and play Pong with like an 8-year-old, and they'll both have an absolute blast, you know. So that kind of makes my day whenever that happens. But I do a lot of themed events. Sometimes different organizations around town will have like a car show and I'll bring out just games with racing wheels. Or we've done like 3 nights of the original Star Wars trilogy at the Ross Raglan Theater. So I did just
Ooh.
Star Wars games that people could play in the lobby beforehand. Stuff like that. I'm always happy to do. I'm the advisor for the KCC Gaming Club here at Klamath Community College. So we get together a couple times a month with students, and I'll bring out different game consoles or board games and just, you know, introduce them to a little bit of the history as well as, you know, just generally fun stuff. And I love being able to do that. So these Comic Cons are an opportunity for me to share my personal collection of stuff with the community and other areas of interest. It's not just a gaming thing. We throw a lot of different things at the board and just kind of see what people are interested in and what we think would be just for a fun, entertaining day. We don't want it to act like it's a direct recruiting drive for new students. Subtly, it is, but it's more so about welcoming the community to our campus for a fun and free day of a wide variety of activities where whether you're 3 years old or 73 years old, and we did have that range of participants in our costume contest, there's going to be something for you to find engaging and interesting. And hey, maybe you find out something about KCC while you're here you didn't know we offered. And maybe you know someone who might be interested in that career path and might want to enroll as a student in the fall. Ultimately, that's the goal of the event.
Nice. So, like I mentioned earlier, you had, and I think you were even saying this too, you had over 2,000 attendees. Were you expecting that many for a new
I
for a
was
new con?
hoping. Yeah, I kept telling everyone here at KCC to expect maybe 1,000, 2,000 people. I thought we might get a decent crowd. One, because we offered it as a completely free event, and two, the timing of it being coming right out of the COVID restrictions. I felt like people were really jonesing for some big send off before the end of the school year, where the community could get together. We could draw people from external communities and just come together for a fun, free afternoon. And that ended up being so overwhelmingly successful that now here at KCC for the past year, there's been well, I'll just say I've been invited to a lot of planning meetings for events where I get dragged in like a week or two before we're doing something. And the first 30 seconds of it are everyone kind of looks over at me and says, Kurt, can you Comic-Con eyes our event? And I say, no, I can't. You should have asked me 3 months ago. So I get posters, yard signs, graphics, videos, all
Well,
these things.
I think
I can't do that in a week.
I think they realized that, you know, not only was it successful, but it brings in potential students or staff.
Yes, and it brings a wide variety of people. It brings a lot of families. And KCC, even though, you know, our school was established in 1996 and we've grown exponentially from very humble beginnings to now great state-of-the-art facilities. We just opened a brand new building on campus. We're already fundraising for the next one. There's always an ongoing process to try to expand what we offer, and that's wonderful. But I think Comic-Con last year showed our administrators and much of the staff the value in community outreach. And so we have been very active over the past year in having a presence at public community events, at county fairs, at events where we can bring a tent out and not just pass out information, but be a um, proactive participant. I'm one of my duties here, you know, I kind of joke my job title is miscellaneous lots of times, but I'm mascot liaison and sometimes mascot. And over the past year, we've had a very conscious effort to have Baxter the Badger at many events. So I've sweated into that suit many times over when it was 100 degrees and I'm marching in a parade and giving out high fives and hugs to little kids. But it's wonderful. It's a great opportunity. I'm very proud of how successful our initial go-around was. And I hope that those people who came out to Klamath and saw it for the first time and saw we have this great big open campus that affords a lot of room to do a lot of different activities, that they want to keep coming back and keep experiencing what KCC offers. Maybe that leads to more enrollments at our school, maybe it doesn't. But regardless, we see this as a loss leader for the school where we can thank the community and thank our outlying communities as well for being a part of, our big philosophy is this is your community, your college. And we really want to treat it as such, as that this is a place for the community to come and gather.
Nice. I mean, again, from what I've heard, from what I've seen, it went really well. Before we talk about, just for a quick little recap, what all went on at KCC Comic Con for last year?
Last year was a very short planning time to see as many things as we could put together as possible, but I am so happy with how it all came together. We were very short-handed on volunteers. That was the one area where I failed desperately. And while I appreciate that people thought I heard nothing but positive feedback. Some people thought that our interior space was a little too crowded and too loud, and I've already made changes to address that. Otherwise, people loved the event. That's great. Behind the scenes, we were hanging on by a thread to make sure that we had enough people in all of the places where things were going on. Last year, we had one building that was solely dedicated to video games. It was my gaming collection. KCC has a trucking program and a aviation program that have full motion flight sims.
Oh,
So we have
I've been in one of those
yeah.
before, and I can say one thing: the flight simulators are not easy to control.
Right. Well, and the truck is even harder. I am actually a licensed pilot. I've been flying airplanes since I was 7. So for me, it's easy and I enjoy it. But damned if I can get the truck to move more than a couple of feet. It cracks me up ever since I tried that. Every time you watch an action movie where there's some big chase sequence and suddenly someone just jumps into a semi truck and then they're off and running. I call such BS on that because you need like weeks of training just to figure out how to work a double clutch. So there is no way that they're just suddenly off and running in whatever chase sequence is going on. It takes some serious work. But we have full motion sims. We had virtual reality systems set up. Our library was set up with board games and guided Dungeons and Dragons adventures. And we had some wonderful folks from Basin Gaming here in Klamath that volunteered to help out with that. We had a number of food trucks, which again, hanging on by a thread. I told them to prepare for a big crowd, and I swear within an hour, most of our food trucks had run out of food and were sending runners off for supplies. So, yeah, we had, so one solution also is I'm having more food trucks this year to compensate for the crowd. Inside, we had a floor with about 35 vendors. We've already sold out of our allotted 50 vendor spaces. So now we're considering opening up some outdoor canopy tent spaces to accommodate because we keep getting requests from more people who want to come. We had a puppetry workshop that was being led by one of our speakers, who is a professional puppeteer and filmmaker out of Portland, Jesse Blanchard. He's made this amazing film called Frank and Zed, which I cannot recommend enough. It's basically a combo of, if you took young Frankenstein and put it in the world of the Dark Crystal, you would get a sense of this movie, Frank and Zed. It's like a buddy comedy who happens to be a vampire and Frankenstein monster terrorizing the villagers. It's amazing. And we showed that film the following day after the Comic-Con as part of the overall event. So he was one of our speakers, and he also led a very popular puppetry making workshop for kids. And we even had some adults when he shut down. I was like, oh man, I want to do that. We had my friend Peter, who is a former Pixar animator and author of several sci-fi books, come in and talk about some of his work. He's created a Samurai Shogun Kaiju book series that's pretty amazing. My buddy Taylor Morden, who is a filmmaker based in Eugene, who's made a number of amazing films, but he's best known as the guy who made the documentary about the last Blockbuster Video store in Bend. It was all over Netflix. So we talked about that as well as some of his other films. We had, I'm sure I'm going to forget someone here. Of course, Pat and Josh were our featured speakers. They chimed in via Zoom from their offices in LA while they were actively working on Sonic 3 to talk to us about Sonic 1 and 2. We had a costume contest that had several hundred participants, which was wonderful. I'm sure I'm blanking on one of our speakers, but the entire day was kind of a giant blur. But it was tons of fun to have be able to reconnect with some old friends, have them share some of their geeky, amazing things that they're continuing to do in Hollywood, and just have tons of people on campus in costume, learning how to make puppets, checking out some of our campus facilities, trying out a flight sim and a trucking sim and VR and video games and board games. And our vendors, almost all of our vendors said that they sold at least $1,000 worth of stuff, which
That's a
was,
lot.
yeah. So for a free event, people came still with open wallets, which was wonderful. And word is spread on that because we barely had to even announce the fact that we were doing our next Comic Con. In fact, we've barely done any advertising so far, and already we have sold out all of our vendor spots. And I keep hearing from people. My girlfriend is an elementary school teacher, and she says the number one topic at the school for the past year has been, is KCC doing a Comic Con again? When are they doing a Comic Con again? What are you going to dress as for the Comic Con when KCC does it? Like, that's all the kids want to talk about. So I take that as a huge compliment that apparently I did something right last year.
Nice. Now speaking of, I know by the time this is out, will be like a month before the con and everything. What do you plan on having this year?
So we're looking at taking all of the feedback that we got and trying to improve everything that we did well last year while adding a couple of different features. So a few things are still kind of up in the air as far as being totally confirmed, but the plan as of this recording today, and I will asterisk that with subject to change depending on a few
Oh yeah,
budgetary
I'll
things
make
that
a
I'm still.
I'll put like a little edit a little note above below this saying subject to change.
So I'm still waiting to hear what kind of budget I'm actually getting from the school. And that's where a few things are still kind of floating. Um, but we will once again have a veritable museum of video games that is open to free play all day long. We will again have virtual reality headsets and full motion flight sims taking place, available all day on campus. I've confirmed 10 food trucks, so hopefully food and drinks are not an issue this time. We are
Mhm.
moving the event from May to July, in part for funding reasons, but also our May schedule gets really crowded on campus in the lead up to graduation. And we just looking at other community events that happen throughout the summer, that seemed to be the one weekend where we weren't stepping on other people's toes too much. I'm sure there's one or two other events happening where unfortunately we may pull from their crowd, and apologies in advance for that. But there is no weekend you can find in the summer where there isn't at least one
Oh,
thing going on.
oh yeah, I
So
remember.
I mean, no matter what day we pick on the calendar, we're going to be infringing on someone else's turf. So we're doing our damnedest to still make the event free. And I know that is rare, but I want to emphasize that this is an event for the community. There's a reason why it's being held at a community college. We are, of course, promoting our programs, but we want to have a free community event for everyone to be able to come and enjoy. Even if you're very low income, this is an opportunity for the entire family to come do stuff. And if you have a few extra bucks, please support our vendors, or get some good food
Oh yeah.
while you're here. But we're certainly not forcing that in any way, and we're not ramming down everyone's throat. Hey, KCC has this program and that program. What we are doing is expanding our program showcases. So we just opened up a brand new apprenticeship center on our campus. And originally we were talking about making that a haunted house, but instead that's going to be a demo of some of the active programs we have going on. So we're still determining exactly what we're going to have, but that does include firefighting and EMT. So I'm sure we'll have some kind of mini firefighting academy that people can try out, spraying a hose, or maybe we'll do hose races, or we have a 4-story fire tower. And I'm sure our program lead for our fire program is wanting to be involved in that in some capacity. Maybe we'll have a CPR demo. We have a great nursing program here. The lab for that in of itself is kind of a mini haunted house when the dummies start breathing and blinking and whatnot. So well, I'm sure we'll incorporate stuff like that. A carpentry program. So we may have, some different crafts projects for kids to try out, but we want to do a better job of showcasing all of the programs we have on campus. At the same time, the overall emphasis of the event is fun. So we will have an area for board games, for Dungeons and Dragons. We're working on some outdoor games, like a full-on Nerf gun war, an inflatable axe throwing area.
I've seen
uh,
I've seen the inflatable axe throwing ones.
yeah, stuff like joust and bounce house type things.
Oh,
We're gonna have a film festival all day long. We're pulling some of our favorite films from the Klamath Independent Film Festival and partnering with Klamath Film to have an all-day film fest, and that'll be set up right next to the food vendors. So go get a burger or some barbecue, and then sit down for 15 minutes and watch a movie while you eat.
I can't
Uh,
wait.
and so we're targeting short films there mostly, and some really fun things that we've had come through Klamath in the last couple of years. The film festival here, by the way, just as an aside, I'm the board chair for that organization, and it's the only film festival that exclusively shows made in Oregon films. And so we draw filmmakers from all over the state, and we'll have animation and horror and comedy and all kinds of wide variety of films that are all Oregon made being shown at the Comic Con. We're going to open up more of our facilities to hopefully get staff involved for different program demos and fun interactive things that we do here at KCC. We're moving our stage outside instead of inside. That should alleviate some of the noise and crowd issues. So on our stage outside, so far, and again, pending, subject to change, we are going to have in person a comic book artist from Battle Quest Comics here to speak. We will have several puppeteers, including a member from the Ashland-based Puppeteers for Fears group that has created Cthulhu the Musical that will be touring all up and down the West Coast, including the stop in Klamath Falls on August 12th, which I'm very excited about. He's going to be part of a panel with a Leica Studios puppeteer talking about what the difference between puppeteering in front of a live audience versus stop motion animation for a major film. We will also have a live band performance by Klamath Falls' own Owls and Aliens, which is, if you aren't familiar, they're a band that is just blowing up. They just finished an East Coast tour. They were just playing the Whiskey A Go Go down in LA a couple days ago. I give it a year or two before they're signed to a major label, so we're getting them while we still can. So they'll be performing. We'll of course have a huge costume cosplay.
They're called owls and what?
Owls and Aliens. Based here in Klamath Falls. They've been touring with some very big names. They've been playing major festivals all over the country.
Is this
Yes,
okay?
that would be them. So
Be
there's an
fun.
opportunity to see them free live in a very fun setting before you have to pay 30, $40 to see them perform in concert once you know their songs. They're really good guys. I have a meeting with them soon to kind of map out our plans for it. But so we'll have an outdoor stage with a DJ, with a band, with speakers, a big costume contest with some big prizes. Last year we gave away a VR headset and a bunch of other cool prizes. And we will end our night with the two animators from Leica Studios who have a national touring live puppetry puppet and shadow show. So we have to wait for the sun to go down for that. And so we'll be ending the Comic-Con around 9-ish, because sunset isn't until 8:45 on July 15th. So once the sun goes down, we'll do a giant nationally recognized, highly sought after puppet show by some animators from Leica that do this touring show.
Coraline Paranorman
Yeah, yeah. So Leica is a Portland-based film studio that is really one of the best known stop motion animation studios around.
Sprites, Lager
They've
Cats,
made
King of Prairie.
Missing Link, Coraline is probably their best known film. But they make a film about every other year with really wonderful stop motion animation.
Kubo and the
And
Two
so,
Strings. Well, okay,
mhm,
that's gonna be. Oh, I definitely
yeah,
have to go to this.
Kubo and the Two Strings is an amazing film in terms of just technical precision of stop motion animation. And so we'll have some folks there who have worked on some of those films and also do like specialty commercial work, who also have done their own little side project. And they have a group called The Hand in the Shadow. And we met them in 2020. They won an award at our 2020 Klamath Independent Film Festival for a short film they made. And we're very glad to have them coming back to Klamath. And so they will be the ones leading the puppetry workshop to make your own puppet in between 50 or more vendors that we have coming from all over the region, 10 food trucks, a live band, a DJ, board games, video games, virtual reality, costume contests, and I'm sure I can fit a partridge in a pear tree at some point somewhere.
It seems like a lot is gonna be going on. I'm actually looking forward to going for my first time as well this year because I'll be going with Retro Wormhole this time because I know they're gonna be coming back again this year.
Nick, the owner of Retro Wormhole, has been a huge supporter of us from day one. He was one of our judges last year for our costume contest and gave away tons of stuff. And I hope that he will be able to do the same thing again this year. We had Nick, a representative from the Klamath County Libraries, and one of our VP administrators from KCC serve as judges for last year's costume contest. And our entrants went from 3 years old up into people in their 70s. So it was wonderful to see so many wonderful costumes and enthusiasm for it. We had a little kid dressed as Sonic win a Sonic the Hedgehog Lego set. We gave away a VR headset. We gave away some gaming gear. We gave away some gift cards. And it was just a fun time to see the creativity of people wanting to let loose. There were a few people that normally the only times I see them, they're in business suits. And they were showing up in like Superman costumes or like SpongeBob costumes. I'm like, okay. So yeah, it was great. A few I didn't even recognize. I got called out on stage emceeing and I'm like, I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're dressed as. Or I remember one kid was dressed as it was, I think it's just called like Puppy Pals or something, and I thought it was the Flash. I didn't notice the ears, and so I got called out for incorrectly naming their costume.
It happens. It happens.
So I will apologize in advance. I'm sorry, I don't know every single anime film ever made. I
There's nothing
apologize.
wrong with that. I feel like honestly there is
There were a
nothing.
lot of deep album cuts in terms of costumes from animes that came out last year. So I will try to do my homework on that uh, coming around for this year, but don't take offense if I get that wrong. We'll of course have a photo booth. We're gonna, depending on budget, we'll figure out giveaways, but we're gonna have a lot of comics to give away for free, courtesy of Klamath County Libraries have donated some because they used to do a Comic Con here a few years back.
I remember hearing
And
about that.
theirs was used to happen in October, and it just simply got overwhelming. They ran out of space. And thankfully, we have a nice big campus with big open areas to put lots of stuff. And so when we did ours last year, they said, you guys just take the Comic-Con label from now on for Klamath and run with it. You have the space, we don't. Oh, and by the way, here's a bunch of free stuff from that we're going to use further
I
on.
thought that was
So
nothing that they basically passed down the mantle to you guys.
yeah, they once they saw the event that we were able to do and the space that we have on campus that they don't.
And
Um,
it can get overwhelming too, you know, not just
yeah,
space, but like, you know, attendees and it's just and there's nothing wrong with just like, yeah, hey, we're not it's just become too much. We're just gonna like, you know, put it on hold or pass it to someone else who can, you know, can handle all this.
and I know that's largely what happened with the Rogue One as well. I mean, COVID may have been the ultimate excuse that killed it, but that one previously was also being run by the library there. And just in talking to them, they were saying like this is getting a little out of hand for us. It's becoming too much to plan. Last year's event I put together in 3 months along with a wonderful committee
And
that
the
helped
fact
me.
that
And
you got all that in 3 months, and I know you're able to do a lot more since you're like given a full year this time around.
yes, yeah, we started planning this year's in September, or at least having preliminary meetings. So that's made this process a lot smoother in the lead up to this year. One, collecting all the feedback that we did last year, figuring out how we can better promote the school, as well as be better patrons and community members. We really haven't launched a lot of advertising yet, and there's already a lot of buzz for it. We're kind of holding off, waiting for budget finalization on that. So you'll start seeing in the coming weeks a lot of advertising for it. And then because of my connections, because of my past life in the entertainment industry for many years, I'm able to pull a lot of resources that others may not immediately be able to access.
I can
Um,
say I can agree with the experience. I can say as well that it's good to have connections.
yes. I took a education in aeronautical science and aviation background into working for Capitol Records, Interscope Music, Universal Music. I was one of the original employees of MySpace. I ran the MySpace record label for about 2 years. Then working for EA, working for Insomniac Games. And then I was a music supervisor for a number of years. Basically, my job was to pick out all of the music that you hear on film trailers, TV shows, movies, stuff like that. So I got to listen to music all day and tell people what I thought was cool. Terrible, horrible, awful job, right? Um, and somehow that turned into relocating to Klamath almost a decade later. But I've tried to stay connected with some of the good people down there, and they've been willing to still put up with my crap and be willing to join in when I ask them to. So this time around, I'm putting less emphasis on speakers and more emphasis on activities, but we're still going to have on-stage activities throughout. Last year, I found that we got a little too crammed in. I had more cosplay costume contest participants than I thought I would. And so that started to infringe on our conversation with Pat and Josh talking about the Sonic movies. And so I want to give more time because I'm expecting a larger crowd this year. I figure if last year on a Friday afternoon, we could draw around 2,000 people to KCC. Afterwards, hearing a lot of people saying, oh man, I so wanted to go, but I couldn't get out of work or I couldn't travel on a Friday. Moving it to a Saturday in
It
mid-July,
helps.
barring major wildfire smoke or some fluke thunderstorm, I'm expecting throughout the day we should probably have about 3 to 5,000 people this go round. So hopefully folks from the Medford area as well as Northern
Oh,
California and the Willamette Valley
that's why I plan
want
to spread the word about this.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can still draw people, be it being on a Saturday. We're partnering with some of our local tourism agencies. So we hope people will want to come down and spend the night in Klamath and visit some of our restaurants, but also, we'll have plenty of food trucks on site. We're expanding the hours of the event as well. It's going to be from 12 to 9-ish. Last year we did 3 to 8. And partly is
That's like your standard convention hours right there.
Yeah,
Almost.
so we will have more volunteers, we'll have more activities, we'll take a better advantage of the space on campus so that things in certain areas don't feel quite so jam-packed in. We will have a film festival that we're adding to what we've done in previous years. We'll still have, I think, some pretty cool speakers. I mean, bringing some people who have worked on Leica films, I think is pretty darn cool. Having a comic book artist come down and talk about what he does. We have more vendors from the region that are wanting to participate, whereas last year we were very Klamath and Medford heavy. Word apparently has spread because I barely had to lift a finger and I had people getting cold calls and emailing me out of the blue saying, are you doing that again? And how can I sign up? So it's been a much smoother process in year 2 than year 1. I hope that continues. Certainly, knock on wood. I hope that we don't have any difficult situations. Safety is a paramount, of course, with everything these days. It's just a reality. So we will have an increased security presence because we're doing it in mid-July. We're also ordering a ton of ice and water to distribute out as need be in case it ends up being very, very hot that day. And just making sure that people have a good time. This is an event that KCC invests a huge amount of money for to gain goodwill in the community more than anything else. We're not trying to force you to sign up for anything. This isn't a timeshare seminar where we lure you to a ski resort, but then you can't leave the conference room for 6 hours. You're free to come and go as you want. Come hang out, do activities that interest you. We wanted to simply provide more activities as a showcase for what Klamath Community College offers in terms of degree program certifications, adult education classes. As community college, and we're not exclusive in this, community colleges provide a pretty wide variety of offerings. It's not just degree programs. We have ballroom dancing and knitting classes. As like, if you want to pick up a hobby, you have some free time, come take a class at KCC. And we're always trying to add a variety of different things as community demand dictates. So this is also a great way for us to get direct feedback of what sort of things is our community base interested in being offered. And more so than anything else, we draw people who have never set foot on our campus. They've driven by it 1,000 times, but they never actually saw it. And we hear, I had no idea you had this. I had no idea you had that. That's really cool. So hopefully Comic-Con leads into people either enrolling as a student or at least coming to more of our community events.
I think honestly that's a good idea. So I know last year entry was free. Is it gonna be the same as this year, or is it
Yes,
gonna?
yes, I am very adamant. Now this may change in the future if this event continues to be successful, but I don't necessarily get all of the funding avenues. It takes a lot of money to put on an event like this. Thankfully, we got support from several different grants this year that were very generous, and I appreciate that very much. Whether or not I get funding from the school is still a little up in the air. And so if it gets to a point where I don't have enough funding, we may have to consider some kind of admission fee. For now, this year, we are asking for a non-perishable food item to be donated or hygiene item to be donated for your entry. All of those entries that we collect are going directly to the KCC Student Food Pantry. So if people show up with a can of beans or some spaghetti or some toothpaste, wonderful, come on in, have a great day. And that's going to go a long way to help out some of our lower income students who are struggling to get by while they're trying to better themselves here at KCC.
Yeah, still not bad. And what is the date again?
Saturday, July 15th
Okay,
in Klamath
15th.
Falls at Klamath Community College from 12 to 9-ish p.m., depending on how long the puppet show goes once the sun sets.
That's that's still not bad.
No,
I'm
I think people can afford, something small to donate. And if we get a couple thousand people, a small little food item or some kind of hygiene item will go a long way towards helping our students. Community colleges especially serve a very wide demographic. We have students who are homeless. We have students who are living in a car. We have students who are barely scraping by and don't know where their next meal's coming from. So our student food pantry is very important to the
I've never
well-being of our students. And we want the community, for all the effort we're giving, I think, a can of food or some small food item is a very small ask that will go a very long way to help.
That's honestly not a bad idea.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I thought of it.
No, and I've never heard of that for like colleges before, where you're actually where the college, looks after their students like that. Because, like you said, there are students who are struggling out there. So I think that's really commendable for you guys to do that for, yeah.
It's something that we've been very conscious of. In fact, this year we opened a child care center on campus. We partnered with the Oregon Child Development Coalition, and so we donated one of our buildings temporarily, and then we're working on fundraising for a permanent early education facility that will both help our education program and students who are working towards becoming teachers, as well as, Klamath has a severe shortage of childcare availability. And we don't want childcare to be inhibitive from someone being able to pursue their career aspirations. And so we established a 60 student childcare facility on our campus that serves, half of that goes towards the public. So parents of young children can drop their kids off at KCC, or they can get bused into KCC. And half of those spots are reserved for KCC students and staff who have children. So
Nice.
that's just one more way that we're trying to take care of our students. We do a lot of social activities for our students as well. We don't have sports, and that's a big question that gets asked. We don't have sports yet. Hopefully, we can start with intramurals a little bit and kind of build up from there. I do know our agriculture program lead is looking into possibly starting a rodeo team. That might be our first sport, and offering scholarships in that respect. But we've tried one or two pickup soccer games with Oregon Tech because they have a nice field and they have you know competitive NAIA teams. And after the score was, I want to say like 15-0, we thought maybe this wasn't the best of ideas to try to do as a fun little intramural thing. But we've dabbled, and just yesterday we were having a big barbecue for students during lunchtime, and there was badminton nets set up and whatnot. So, we try to do fun things on campus, and Comic Con is just an amalgamation of a lot of different fun things that we do all smushed together in a big ball for our students, for the community, and for anyone who is a fan of, Comic-Con culture or just likes big social settings of fun activities. Maybe you like video games, maybe you like VR, maybe you like board games, or maybe you just want to come out and see what's going on because you're curious. We want to facilitate that, and in part that's why I try really hard to continue to make it a free event if at all possible, to maximize our audience, and also give people that even if it's a couple of bucks, they're like, oh well, we can't do that because we're barely paying rent and eating at this point. We want to make sure that the families around here that are rural, that are scraping by, can still offer their kids a fun, positive experience.
Oh no, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that should do it. Again, I'm looking forward to going this year myself. I can't wait to see all the guests, all the attendees, the cosplayers, and of course, meet you in person instead. And thank you for the interview and everything. So yeah. Once again, can you let people know where to find you all on social media and everything, so they can keep up to date on updates for the convention and the school itself?
So we have an Eventbrite site set up for advanced registration, and that's where I'd really like to send people because that has all of our rules about campus and what you can and can't wear costume wise. We don't want people. This is a gun-free zone campus. I understand sometimes people have props. Security will be like locking things if your prop is a little too realistic. And please don't bring like a giant sharpened machete or anything like that could be viewed as a potential safety violation. But at the same time, we want to see people's creativity. We also don't want any sort of nudity, body paint
Well,
things
this is
because
a this is a
we will
this
have
is a
little
family
kids.
friendly
Very,
con. If
very,
you want
very
to,
family friendly, yes. Um, but we also, to try to alleviate one of our issues last year, which was a massive red line at the check-in area, we want to create a smoother process. So we are requiring everyone to use a QR code to register on site when they first come in. And that way we kind of bypass lengthy lines. So we'll have a bunch of placards up of, scan this, punch in your name and info, and then you're good to go. Come on in. But people can also fill that out in advance. And that way you're taken care of, so you can just show up and walk right in then if you've already done it. So we have an Eventbrite site. So for people who are familiar with Eventbrite, just search for KCC Comic Con or look up Klamath, and I'm sure it'll pop right up. And there is advanced registration there that you can fill out now in advance, so you can skip the line. So please do that if at all possible. As far as our socials, it's just Klamath Community College. If you search, we have TikTok, two TikToks for English and Spanish. We have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, we have a YouTube channel. If you like my videos, hey, thanks. I appreciate that because I'm the one who makes all of our video content. So hope you enjoy. I get to do lots of fun, zany things with Baxter the Badger. I think I'm funny, but you be the judge. Uh, so we get to have a lot of fun with our socials. So we would love people following us as Klamath Community College. So whatever your flavor may be within Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, we're there.
nice. Well, I think that should do it again, Kurt. Thank you for coming on to give a quick little recap on last year's con, and then, of course, letting people know what to expect to see this year. Looking forward to seeing it myself in person. Yeah, I think that should do it. And as always, I am Wayne the Unknown. Until next time, thank you for listening, and as always, thank you for watching.